Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lee and I'm an alcoholic, also known as virtual sponsor. The reason why I started this channel is because I've been in recovery for about 3 years now, and oftentimes in many recovery programs, especially the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, it is recommended, if not highly suggested, that people in recovery go through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they also do that with a sponsor. My experience, I've been, again, in recovery since early September of 2022. My sober date, however, is in December of 2024. I had a brief relapse that lasted a day that reset my timer. However, I've been doing my best to practice principles in all my affairs and to live a sober life and life in active recovery. But getting back to why I started this channel is because I understood that many people struggle with the idea of getting a sponsor, going through the steps, and getting past the steps. And so I thought that this would work in the benefit to those people that are hesitant to get a sponsor, to be some form of online sponsor, somebody that you can use as a temporary sponsor as you work through your own recovery journey, to kind of get you started in what recovery is all about, and it to streamline you into actually getting a real life sponsor. Because again, in my experience, having a sponsor has been pivotal to my recovery. I've been working with the same sponsor for about 3 years now. But I think that this is a great opportunity to help those people that are kind of, struggling with the idea of getting a sponsor. So what I want this channel to really look like is me going through different pieces of literature that have helped me on my own recovery journey, starting out with the big book and going through all the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and allow you to ask questions, maybe get some questions answered on how I interpret the text, and get ideas on how you can live your life sober and not struggle with the painful life that is active addiction. But a little bit about my story. So ever since I was, about 21 to 22 is when I really started experiencing heavy use of drugs and alcohol. I was very much involved in the rave scene and going to festivals and things like that. But it didn't really take a grip of my life until COVID and when lockdowns became a big part. I used to be a content creator on Twitch. One of my incentives to have people watch my channel was actually to drink alcohol, and it kind of just took off from there. Drinking at home got really common, and I got really comfortable with doing that. And then that progressed into drinking and drugging by myself in isolation, and a lot of wrong decisions just kept on compounding that made life really hard to live. I was constantly in a state of shame, fear. Fear was the major one, guilt, and just constant anxiety about how my life, any next hour was going to destroy my entire life. And so I made the decision to go into an inpatient treatment facility. I was there for 30 days, and then I did a stint in sober living for about 7 months. And for the most part, since that time, my life has transformed significantly, and living life in recovery has been the reason for all that. And so I wanted to break down today, the steps, the 12 steps of AA. And again, this channel is not AA, but it is kind of a AA oriented, recovery oriented, platform, if you will. And so what I wanted to do today, besides talking about my story and my drunk log, is kind of go into how it works, and maybe read a couple more pages from the big book and leave off from there and see how that takes. So starting with chapter 5, how it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. So right there in the first paragraph, they mention, I think, what is the key word to almost every single alcoholic's problem, and that's honesty. You have to get honest with yourself. You have to be honest with your situation. You have to be honest about every single interaction and decision that's led you to the point where you are today. And for me, honesty was really, really important, because it wasn't until I got honest with myself, saying to myself, oh fuck, I'm in way too deep and I can't get myself out of this situation. I have to honestly know that I'm screwed, and I have to honestly understand that I need to ask for help. And that was really the catalyst, honesty, of getting me out of my own way and getting me on the path that led me to sobriety. I'll continue on. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go at any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us had tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. So to break down that paragraph and what it means to me is that we tried our way. We tried to do things half-assed. We try to take suggestions but not follow them through to the fullest extent. And where does that ultimately lead us? Or where did that ultimately lead me? It led me to even worse situations, even worse headspace, even worse consumption of drugs and alcohol. And I just wanted to hold on to my own ideals because that was what was comfortable for me. And I was very selfish in that regard because I wasn't capable of being honest, of knowing that my way wasn't working. And when it says the result was nil until we let go absolutely, it wasn't until I finally took the jump off point of admitting to other people, admitting to myself that I was fucked and I couldn't get myself unfucked. I needed somebody else I needed to peel the layer back of what was truly going on in Lee's life until things started getting better. So remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. So a little bit about the whole God complex in this whole thing is that, for me, when I first was introduced in my treatment center, we had a chapel going on and people were introducing themselves as alcoholics. There's about 35 men in there when I first came in, and I just sat down. I literally just got there, dropped my bags off into my room, and now I have to sit down with a bunch of random strangers that are admitting they're an alcoholic, to where I still haven't said this yet out loud, but I knew it to be true. And so they also followed that with saying the Serenity Prayer, talking about God, and that I recoiled from that right away because I have my own, hang-ups about religion and God at this point. And again, but there's one who has all power. That one was God. May you find him now. We'll get into higher power stuff when we cross that line, but I just want to let everybody know that's watching this, the first episode, is that you can have your own definition of God. It does not have to be the Christian God, the Hindu God, the Buddhist God, the Muslim God. It is your interpretation of God or a higher power. So I hope that, doesn't scare anybody away that's clicking on this video. So half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked for his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps that we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. So now we're getting to the big steps. The whole reason why I wanted to read how it works is because I kind of want to go through the big book, go through the steps, tell you a little bit of my experience with the steps and how I completed them and how I've led other men through the steps for you to get your own baseline of what you need to do as you, either if you're working with a sponsor or not, you traverse the Alcoholics Anonymous program. So step 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives have become unmanageable. Again, we're powerless over alcohol. I admitted to that a long time ago. It seems like a long time ago, maybe relatively not. But I knew I was fucked and that I had a problem. But it wasn't until many, many months, if not maybe a year after that fact, that I actually decided to get help. And then came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So when I finally made that admission to myself that I was powerless over alcohol and my life was unmanageable, I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore us to sanity, because I knew if I told somebody that was very close to me, in this case it was my mom and my dad, of what was going on and what I was struggling with, that would be the bedrock of springing me into a better position, because they would help me get the resources and the tools that I need to restore me to sanity, so to speak. And then made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. And so this is when I got placed or got suggested to go to the treatment center I went to. You know, I made a decision to go there. I was turning my will over. I was no longer saying, no, I won't do an outpatient program to my therapist. I was now saying, I will go. I will do anything that is suggested to me to not feel like the way I'm feeling right now. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 4, we're just writing down, this fearless and moral inventory. Usually it's going to be your resentments, your fears, your sex inventory, and I believe, what's the other one? There's another one, but we'll get more into the steps and make more sense of it when we get to that point. But this is also like one of the steps a lot of people have a big hang up on. It's really hard to see on paper the exact ways you conducted yourself in your addiction, especially because that's not the way we want ourselves to be viewed. But it's a fearless and moral inventory of ourselves, and it's a very important step. And then step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to other human beings the exact nature of our wrongs. So now that we have this list of our conduct and how we behaved in our addiction, now we have to share this. We obviously shared it with ourselves because we've made the list. We share it with our higher power because our higher power is all-knowing. And then we have to share it with another human being. Again, another big hang-up part in the AA recovery program, because there's so much fear, there's so much either resentment of who we used to be, and on top of that, it's a lot of shame. There's a lot of shame that goes into the way we behaved, and so it's really difficult to have our deepest, darkest secrets come out to somebody. And again, a big hang up to why a lot of people do not get a sponsor in AA, because they don't want to let people in to the way they behaved. And so I'm hoping with this channel I can be the conduit that you guys can trust in and be able to stop that blockage. Step 6, we are entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. For me, going through step 6 was immediately after my 5th step with my sponsor. I went home and I just meditated on everything that was said and everything that was more or less washed away. And then that kind of ties in with step 7 as well. It's kind of putting the old version of Lee to bed. Step 7, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. So take this away from me. Now, step 6 and 7 get a little bit confused because they're 2 of the shortest steps that you'll read in the book. But they're massive steps, because, if you look at your shortcomings and your character defects as weeds, think of step 5 as that, you're exposing them to pesticide or whatever. You're getting rid of these weeds. Well, the weeds are going to come back. There's going to be some situation or something that happens in your life where those character defects and those shortcomings come back, and you got to be able to tend to that garden and pull those weeds out again. So that's kind of where 6 and 7 are, in my opinion. And then step 8, made a list of persons we have harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. In our addiction, we do some shit, and I'm sure that you have done some shit in your past as well. This is where we write down all those people that we've harmed. It's not necessarily talking or reaching out to make an amends to these people, but it's actually making a physical list of the people that we have harmed in our addiction. I know my list had a few names on there that I didn't even want to write down, but I knew that they deserved, some type of reconciliation for the way that I behaved in our relationship. And then 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Direct amends, very tough. I did my amends probably almost 2 years ago now. I still have one that I haven't done. We'll get more into amends as we get down, into more videos, but amends is tough, man. And we sometimes have done a lot of pain or inflicted a lot of pain to people. And the one golden rule I always say with amends is that, we say our piece, but we don't get to control what they say. And we have to be okay with that. But amends is another jumping off point where people, sometimes they'll make the list, but they don't actually make the amends. So continuing on, step 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we are wrong, promptly admit it. So again, like those weeds I was talking about, those shortcomings, those character defects, there are going to be times where we step over the line, and we're not perfect. And this isn't a program of perfection. This is a program of always working towards a better you. And so in those events that we do overstep that line and mess up, as all humans are capable of, we take inventory and we admit when we're wrong. So whether that being, apologizing to somebody when you, maybe lied to them, or, you cut somebody off in traffic and you just kind of take an inventory about how, man, I shouldn't have cut that person off in traffic. It's just an honest inventory of yourself, spot checking yourself right then and there. Again, tending to those weeds that will come up eventually. And then 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscience contact with God as we understand Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Very, very important step. I wouldn't be where I'm at today without my higher power. And so making sure that I have a conscious contact with Him, showing gratitude, praying at night. I use the WAR acronym. That's worship, admit, and then request. And then meditating to hear what His plans and what He wants of me, or just quieting down the mind, quieting down the body from a long days of, activity and a long days of just life in general. Very, very important step. And then step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and practice these principles in all of our affairs. So again, we're a new person now. We try to practice these principles in all of our affairs. We try to keep a God conscience wherever we go and with whatever, we interact with. We're not always going to be perfect, but we're just striving to be better. And then also step 12 is helping out the other alcoholic. 12-step work is some of the most important work that you'll do in your recovery journey. And it's kind of like paying it forward. So a little bit about my experience was that in my treatment program, we had a bunch of alcoholics from various meetings across the state come in and actually run the programming at our treatment facility. So it wasn't a clinical nurses and anything like that. It was literally just alcoholics helping other alcoholics. And so once I actually understood that and connected with it, I really took it for what it was. It was like, wow, this is a very selfless program. And helping other people is really how you stay sober. And that's been the case for me, from, giving guys rides from the airport to treatment, from detox to treatment to detox, whether that be being trusted servant, pouring coffee at meetings, setting up meetings with chairs, whether that being a greeter coordinator, whether that being on a Young People in Alcoholics Anonymous board. It's limitless. But that's how you be involved. And if some of you have been to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, you'd understand the phrase "stay in the middle of the herd." That's exactly how you stay in the middle of the herd. All right. So many of us exclaimed, "What in order? I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we're willing to grow along spiritual lines. These principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostics, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought. So, again, it highlights here, no one of us has maintained anything like perfect adherence to these principles because we're human. It's impossible. One of the fun things that my sponsor would always tell me, especially early on in my recovery, is I'd be freaking out about something, something I did wrong, or, something where I felt like I was out of line and I wish I would have done better. And he would say, do me a favor, look behind you. And so I look behind me. He's like, you see a cape? I'm like, no. He's like, you're not Superman. You're human. You're going to fuck up. You're going to make mistakes. And it was that subtle reminder that allowed me to give myself grace where I couldn't find any. And again, another small but really important reason why having a sponsor throughout your recovery journey is so important, because he's going to check you. He's going to guide you. He's going to, reel you in when you need to be reeled in. And so I'm hoping that I can be that type of, person or example for you as you navigate your own spiritual and also recovery journey. All right. So with that being said, today, a very, very brief introduction to what I'm trying to accomplish with this channel. And again, it is being a sponsor, temporary sponsor, if you will, as you either entertain or find out, where you're at in your recovery journey, or if you're thinking that you want to start a recovery journey and you're not sure yet. I'm hoping that this channel can, help you answer those questions, and obviously post any questions in the comments below, and just be a tool for you guys as you navigate whatever it is you're going through. But I will say one thing that is really important: the fact that you're here, the fact that you're curious about these things is a great first step. Might not be the first step, but it is the first step in my opinion. And so I'm hoping that this can help one person, and I'll be very grateful, because it helps me stay out of my own way in my own life. Helps me, recalibrate what's really important in this whole thing, and it's just helping another person. And so, again, on this video, we talked about a lot, mainly the 12 Steps to Alcoholics Anonymous, a little bit about myself. And going forward, we'll continue breaking down, the big book, and we'll start from the beginning and we'll get to the end, maybe throw in some stories as well, and then continue going on into other types of recovery literature that I've used that have been beneficial to me, and throw in some life stories, maybe some different types of formats. We'll see. This is very much in its infancy and very much in a raw state. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Again, leave a like if you got anything of use or value from this video, and subscribe for more recovery focused content. Again, this is Lee. This is the virtual sponsor. I hope you guys have a blessed day, and we will end with the Serenity Prayer. For those that don't know it, just follow along. It's gonna be fine. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Peace. All right, peace, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.